why am I being called to look into my records? But I just keep getting these little dings and pulls. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, what they're showing me, they're just kind of confirming that, like, it's almost like a moth to a flame. There's something that your soul wants you to know, and it's being a witch in a past life and being burned at the stake, like really intense. I feel like that feels really connected to why almost like that magic, if you will, didn't come through till later in life.
It's interesting that you said loss of a child. I don't have children, and I never wanted children.
I call in an Archangel Raphael. He's showing me like almost like just like glitter, just gold glitter, just almost like sprinkling it over your heart.
It's really calming.
Your gift and purpose in this life could be like a merging of that if you so choose. Hi, I'm Sam Franklin, intuitive, healer, and psychotherapist. In this podcast, you'll hear real life sessions where I open the Akashic Records, connect with angels, offer energy healing, and guide my guests through deep soul transformation. Each session begins by opening the Akashic Records, or the energetic library of the soul, to receive clarity and guidance. Next, I set sacred intentions and invite loving support from the angels, spirit guides, ancestors, and all other spirits who are here for the highest good and healing. Throughout these sessions, I explore soul purpose, soul connections, and soul gifts. I also examine the deeper roots of challenges, including past life lessons and how they shape the present, to help my guests reconnect with their truth and step into the life they're meant for. Whether you're here out of curiosity or on your own healing journey, I invite you to listen with an open heart. You might just hear something your soul's been waiting for. Let's dive in. All right, so welcome. I'm excited to jump in. Before we get into you asking questions and really diving into your records, I'll take a moment to open your Akashic Records. And while I do that, you're welcome to just take some deep breaths, get grounded, get centered, and bring your kind of energy into this space. So I'm going to open your records in my mind, which just looks like a book opening. And I'm going to call in any angels, spirit guides, loved ones, ancestors, any spirits that want to come in with love and light for Amber's highest good, for the collective's highest good, for healing and guidance, anything that needs to be heard, said, shared, spoken to bring into this space. Thank you. Okay. Well, now that the records are open, we can jump in.
Great.
So where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, my major question is why am I being called to look into my records? It's not it's not something that I don't feel like I've had a lot of questions in my life as to like why things are happening, but I just keep getting these little dings and pulls and interests in it that I just don't understand why I'm being pulled to actually look into them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me just take a moment to channel. Usually things go a little bit slower in the beginning and then we'll move along. Let me see what your angels and guides have to say. Yeah, I mean, what they're showing me, they're just kind of confirming that, like, it's almost like a moth to a flame. It's kind of like the phrase that they're using. Like, I see a light, and you're kind of almost being like not dragged, but kind of pulled is the energy. I'm just going to kind of see why or what's happening around that. Because it's not like it's, they're kind of starting like the chicken before the egg. So, like, it's not like, oh, I had a thought about the Akashic Records and now I feel curious. It's more of like I'm being drawn and now I'm curious as why that's happening, right? That's how it's more like the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's kind of see. I'm hearing there's something that your soul wants you to know, wants to share with you. Um, and it's not necessarily that you're not listening because it feels like you can be fairly tuned into your intuition. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that's deeper. Are you okay if I explore like what that might be?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, let me see here. I'm hearing passion, what you're passionate about, and then I'm seeing a flower blooming open. Um, and I'm hearing like it's like you're not off your path necessarily. It's almost like what's next on your path. What I'm seeing is like this image of someone like walking through a forest and just kind of looking around, and then they kind of come across something on the road and are like, huh, I never like that's interesting. Let me see if that's like the Akashic Records that they're saying, or that's something else. I'm hearing like just like open yourself up and put yourself out there, but it's not like that you're hiding. It's like bolder, braver, something bigger, something more on stage, something more, something more. I don't know if there's anything that's ringing a bell as I'm kind of naming these things.
I don't think so. I'm like that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, what am I missing? What is it trying to tell me? Um, yeah, I mean, I have questions about uh things like why did I not come into witchcraft until my 40s,
Mm-hmm.
or why did I not hear from my guides or really open up more until later in life? And why am I hearing all of that now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the image that they're showing is like a young child and just a lot of like black or darkness, not necessarily like bad darkness, just like right, like the not the guides and the things coming through. It's almost like that you say had to live your life like that. Like you needed to be kind of like a lay person, is what they're saying. You needed to know what it was like to walk through life without that.
Mhm.
There's something that feels really helpful of like what you're gonna be doing or what you are doing, because otherwise your experience would have been different and you wouldn't have known what that's like to not be connected. Is there any of that you're like you help people with that, like get connected, or that's something that you want to do?
A little bit. Yeah, I can see that. I am a theater artist, and I really I started off as an actor and went into directing. And now I'm a artist liaison. I still do acting, I still do directing, but to help people find their passion. I do feel a little bit burned out on it from time to time. Um, I have thought about like what happens if I lose this job? What do I do next? Um, and there's something really interesting to me about like death doulaship, something like that. Um, I wanted to go to school for veterinary science, and I always thought that I would, help with, pets, and especially like the whole euthanasia process, and, like, um, helping to um, bring people to the next level of what that is. Hung out in graveyards a lot. There's all that business. Um, Yeah, and I've thought like, well, if I wasn't doing my job now, what would I go to get schooling in? And death doulaship has always been kind of like that interest for me. But I don't know if I have the mental fortitude to actually like go through with that. Um, and yet at the same time, I'm like, I don't know what else is available for me.
Yeah, the image that is being brought up as you're talking through all this is um and they use this sometimes. The image in Beauty and the Beast, when the prince goes from the beast to the prince, like all the light is everywhere and kind of transforming. That feels like what is happening now or what is about to happen. And that feels kind of tied to the original question of like why the Akashic Records, why now? Sometimes a transformation. And when you're talking about being a vet, it felt like only if you can bring in intuition and intuitive stuff. If it was just treating animals, that really falls flat, is kind of what the feeling was. But as you're talking about, like whether it was like animal mediumship, that was something that came up, or if it was like helping, souls, whether it's animals or humans, cross the other side, that felt more aligned. Ooh, and I'm getting goosebumps. But if it was something without that like spirituality and intuition, it just doesn't quite hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I really liked science growing up, but it just something I got really I actually started off in biology and then I got really sick my freshman year and I ended up having to pull out a lot of classes. And that's when I kind of went down the artist road. Um, my parents really didn't want me to do that. And so that was a little bit difficult. And they didn't think that I could, make my way doing that. And then I did. And I did pretty well for myself. Scraped through a few really boring admin jobs to get to this job that I have now, which I do describe as my dream job,
Mhm.
working in the arts and working with artists. But um, yeah, and then I started at one point just kind of getting little hints and messages that somebody I was trying to get contacted. And that kind of opened up this whole world for me of just listening more. I am very much a tarot card reader and a tarot collector. So I'm constantly listening to the inner voices and all of that. Um, but yeah, when the and I love researching and I love just reading a massive amount of books. I go to Paganicon, this the Akashic Records would bubble up and come up and just kind of pique my interest from time to time, but I basically would just kind of put it to the side. Like that's like saying, "Oh, it's time for you to learn astronomy." That is, a big, or astrology, right? That's a big thing to undertake, and I just felt like, oh, the Akashic Records. That's really deep. I've never been much of a dreamer. Like I don't remember my dreams or um I've always wanted to, if I do dream, I've always wanted to be a lucid dreamer and no amount of like working on that would ever make that happen. So when I think about the Akashic Records and what I have learned about it, just feels like that's a world that is um that that I've kind of stepped towards and found that I don't have that skill set.
Mm.
And so I haven't really pursued looking at them, but it just keeps coming up and it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Mhm. I- What I'm sorry, sometimes I get so many messages, I'm trying to figure out where to start. Um, One of the things that's coming through is like numerology. Is that something that you ever been interested in or explored or know much about?
Not really.
So kind of looking at like numbers and patterns and like kind of spiritual stuff. I don't know much about it, but that's something that came up. There's almost like that there could be a way to blend more. I know that's more math, but more science or like that kind of realm with the spiritual. What I'm hearing a lot is like there can be a lot of assumptions of what it means to like be an intuitive, to do this kind of work, what gifts you have to have. And there's so many people that can use their gifts that they're like, well, that's not me. Like even when you're talking about the Akashic Records, anyone can open their own, anyone can read anyone else's. It's really like reading a pathway prayer and then trying to be connected into your body. And if you've already been getting intuitive messages, it's very possible. You don't even need to know really anything about the Akashic Records except that it holds all of this energetic information about your soul and everyone else's. Um, so it's not as much of a deep dive or a big step, that's kind of the word they're using, as you might think, that you actually can dip your toe in and test it out and play around with your own records. And that's like another way to get deeper information from your soul and your guides.
That's very interesting. Um, I guess too, I've always like, the big questions that people ask, you know, um, why am I being, or why do I have to learn this lesson, or what am I going through? I feel like I almost didn't want to know.
Yeah.
I have those questions. I do have the questions of like, why am I with my husband? Why have I chosen him? Or why am I having the health issues that I'm having? Or just something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to know. I feel like that's not that I'm going to find anything painful, but it kind of like is cheating.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Takes away from the mysteries of life.
Yeah, like well, if I knew what that was, then I I would know what to look for here, and I would maybe not learn the lesson so deeply.
Mm.
Um yeah, I don't know. I'm that person that like when I play a game and I
Yeah.
can see someone else's cards, I don't look. Like I don't want to cheat. I
Mhm.
want to get to the conclusion honestly. And so sometimes I think about that as like, looking into the past lives and trying to figure out where the what I'm where I'm coming from, what I'm trying to learn. Yeah, almost ruins the game
Mm.
a little bit, I guess.
Mhm.
At the same time, some of my guides are they're a bunch of the Egyptians,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
uh it just popped out at me because I'm also a creative, and so some of the more creative gods are, I'm gonna put these people on my altar,
Mhm.
and one of them is Seychat, and it wasn't until later that I found out she was considered to be the librarian
Mm.
in the records, and I that was another reason why I was like, why do you want what's going on here? She's very friendly, and it's almost like a teasing game. Like, don't you want to know? Don't you want to come in? Um, and I guess I just wanted to know why without really peeking under the cover or like really opening the Christmas gift, you know?
Mhm.
Um, is there anything that can be spoiled like that?
I would say, well, one thing, doing this work for a while is, people want to know about the future, and I rarely kind of answer that. And usually, even if I ask pointedly, they're always, they don't usually give a lot of answers. So there is part of it that they really want you to kind of walk this path and stay in the present. They'll give you guidance for the future. So that's one way where they kind of honor that, and they honor that your life is a choice. But kind of what they're bringing in now is like, kind of how you're describing it is like playing a game but not knowing all the rules or not knowing having all the cards or having all the resources. So it's not that you're cheating, because you're taking what isn't due or owed to you. It's like this, you could level up basically in life. Like you could actually learn your lessons either quicker or deeper or differently by having these extra resources. So it's not cheating that you won't learn them. Sometimes we believe that we have to kind of go through suffering to learn lessons, and sometimes we don't need to suffer so much. um, so it actually can work the opposite, because you say like, maybe I won't learn my lesson so deeply if I cheat, but they're saying that actually might not be the case.
Okay.
And so I think there's more of a welcoming in kind of energy of like, this is a safe space, it's okay, you're not doing anything wrong. That it actually could enhance and, like I said, level up your life by having more information.
That's very interesting. That makes me want to ask questions. Um, in that case, may I ask a deeper question?
Yeah. And this is also like, like part of the records is they're so ethical, and that you have to have consent to open your records. You have to have consent to ask a question or me do any healing. And so that's where, right, where we're not cheating or bypassing. So yeah, ask a question.
Great. So as you know, would have really liked to meet with you during Paganiscon, and I was ill. I was actually in the ER
Mhm.
because I've been having some heart flip-flops. And I had been wearing a monitor, and they found some really scary type of patterns and asked me to come in. And I spent a couple of days in the hospital while they were doing a bunch of tests. And I found out that it's just a heart defect, that I basically have some bad wiring in there that just causes intermittent signals. And they can fix me. It's really great. And I trust my doctors, and everything was really lovely. And I'm very grateful that it isn't like a huge, huge problem. But I I wonder why this, where this is coming from, and what I am supposed to learn from this or complete, what kind of project this is.
Yeah. The image that's coming through kind of as you're naming this, it's really interesting. It's so much sadness and heaviness in the word like heartbreak. And what I'm seeing is someone like sobbing. It's like a grief, heavy sadness. And I don't know if it's from this life or a past life that has been brought in. Sometimes our physical issues and stuff that we struggle with in this life actually can be a carryover from another life. But it's almost like that's what, like, there's just like heartbreak is what they keep showing. And that's kind of what's being impacted. Does any of that resonate?
Yeah. I mean, only that, not in any sort of story or thought or anything that's happened in my life, but um I have I put a very deep um I have a very, very deep want to be compassionate in my life, and I can sometimes, my heart sometimes breaks very easily for others. Um, I also, because I am drawn to the Egyptians, that whole heart and feather, um, that is basically my main mantra of may my heart be lighter than a feather. I just hope to get to a place where um, I'm constantly keeping my heart as light as possible. There is a lot of there was a lot of anger in my childhood, a lot of anger management, and I just feel like I've had enough of that, and I've always had better results just when I am meeting the world with a lot more compassion. My whole job is ushering artists through a very difficult process of producing their work, and they can be very frustrating. Artists are very special and very different people, and my motto is love the artist, and when they frustrate you, love them harder. Just just putting that forward. So um, I don't know if that's something that is coming from another time or another lifetime, or if it's just something that I've learned in this one. But yeah, that's a big one for me.
Mm-hmm. It feels like it's a little bit of both. Almost like what is coming in from a past life is like a loss of a child, like a really, really deep, deep, difficult loss. Um, and then when you're talking about your childhood with the anger, I see a lot of buildup. So this idea that there might be stuff that's been stored. And I do a lot of work with anger. It's one of my specialties in therapy and in coaching. And anger, when if we have built up anger, once we work through that, what comes up is usually grief. That's like the next stage of clearing out of emotions until it gets cleared. Um, so I think there's just a lot of buildup of stuff, and it's like, and I can feel it's like a little bit harder to breathe. It's like just putting a lot of pressure on the heart, and so I think they're showing me like we need like a release valve to kind of
Mm.
let that out, almost like a dam, kind of release all of that.
It's interesting that you said loss of a child.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have children,
Mm-hmm.
and I never wanted children, and so um, I knew that from a very early age that I was not going to have kids. Um, so I find that very interesting, that there might be something, there might be a reason why.
Yeah, there might have been too much of a heartbreak. There could have been a vow. There's if I were to tune into that life, there just might be something more there that, could be cleared or just could be being, moved into this life. Um, something that the angels are bringing up that we could do, and we don't have to do this now, or you could do it on your own, um, is to do some clearing of the stuff. Now, there's something, that would be helpful to be doing ongoing, and I can always ask them what that is, but just like an initial clearing, I'm wondering if you'd be open to that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how I do this is I call in, and Archangel Raphael is the one that really wants to come in, which he deals with matters of the hearts and emotions, and he's very calming, very soothing, and very loving. And I just kind of have him, he does the healing, and I just channel it and kind of witness it and just walk you through it. And so just pay attention to what you're feeling and what comes up for you as I walk you through this, and then we'll kind of check in after I do that. How does that sound?
Great.
Okay. So I'll have Archangel Raphael come in. And okay, so he's noticing, like, if we're looking at your heart space, this door is like pretty wide, and almost like he's a little bit hesitant to open it all the way up because there's just so much. So um he's just gonna, and it's interesting, he's calling Archangel Michael, who's like protector and strength. He's gonna be like, can you hold open this door just a little bit? Just crack it open, but don't let it come open all the way. And we're just gonna let some of this emotion pour out so it feels more manageable. And so we're just doing that and just dumping it out. And he usually, when we do this, has like a bowl underneath all of this, just catching it, or his hands with love, all the emotions, sadness, anger, grief, shame, fear. Just let it pour out. Just watching it continuing to pour. And now the door is fully open. There's not as much water. All the water has been poured out. Now he wants to transmute this and take that water and morph it into love and light and healing and compassion and comfort, safety, all of these things. And then he wants to put it back in your heart space. See how he wants to do this. He's showing me like almost like glitter pixie dust kind of a thing. Um, yeah, just like glitter, just gold glitter, just almost like sprinkling it over your heart because he doesn't want it to be too heavy. He doesn't want to be liquid because that's kind of what was, holding the heart hostage, basically, is what he's saying. So just kind of lightly sprinkling it everywhere. And then closing up the door, but not shutting it like it's been before. That you can open and close it. It even, if you would like, it can be see through. So you can keep your heart space open while being protected. And he's just putting his hands healing touch on your heart space, just sending extra love, extra light. Okay. So how is that feeling for you?
That's good.
Yeah.
It's really calming.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like the gold glitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice.
I'm gonna see like what he recommends doing ongoing so that it doesn't build up again. He's saying speak your truth. So this idea of like when we have anger, and the purpose of anger is to let us know that someone is harming us in some way, shape, or form, crossing a boundary, for example. And it's really gives us the energy to protect ourselves. And if we don't take some type of action, then it builds and it can turn into other stuff, physical health problems, resentment, um, shame, anger at ourselves. And so we want to be able to speak it, but it doesn't have to look scary. It doesn't have to look like yelling. It could look like, hey, you said that. And maybe I misunderstood you, but this is what I heard. And that was hurtful. Or, um, the way that you're interacting with me, I feel like you're having a lot of high expectations about this. And I don't know that I can meet those expectations. Here's what I can do, whatever that is. But it could be more of a conversation. But if we just stuff it down and we just skip over to the love part, we kind of do ourselves a disservice and we abandon ourselves, kind of that younger part that maybe never got heard. We at
Mm,
least want to take a moment to meet our younger selves and say, hey, I hear you. Like you're angry. That's okay. Even if it doesn't make any sense, like you get to be angry because if we skip over, that's when it starts to become a problem.
great.
Yeah. How does that sound to you?
That's good. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say the angels and guides are really bringing in, like, just kind of driving that home of like, even not just anger, but other emotions. Like make sure it's coming out and not staying in. Um, because that's a major part of health stuff. And so this is a really good example of kind of like you said, what's the lesson here? I mean, this could be a lesson where it's like to learn to speak. You have a lot of great tools, right? Theater is like a really great tool of expression. I'm sure you have other ways, creative ways, or writing, or whatever it is to let it out. Um, but sometimes I think we think we have to stay in some type of discomfort because it's teaching us something. And this is a good example of once we've learned it, of like, this is the purpose of it, this is what we need to do with it. We could take that action, and then that symptom or that suffering gets to go away. We learn the lesson, but we don't take the suffering with us.
That would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is that something like a is that something that I can learn from the records? Like, is that the kind of lesson that I'm supposed to be learning? Like, just digging into the records and saying, is what is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess if I have questions, those are I have the big ones, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what am I doing here? What is it?
Yeah. I mean, you could ask all of those questions, right? And this is, think of it as like, um, when you've gone to school for anything, right, you have teachers and you learn things. It's the same way as like with your guides, with the Akashic Records. These are your teachers. These are your mentors. They're teaching you how to connect to yourself, to your soul, to your spirit, to walk through life in a way that feels deeper and grounded and richer, and your soul's growing, right? So it really isn't like they're giving you the answers to a test, because they're not solving it for you. They're giving you tools, right, to walk through it so you can ask those, what's my purpose? What's my lesson? All of that stuff.
Great.
Yeah. And I know we're coming near to the end of our time. Is there one of those questions that either didn't get answered yet today that you had asked, or something else that you want to ask before we wrap up?
Um, I guess I guess I would have a question about maybe a past life, if there's any there, like that I can it's hard because like I'm interested in,
Yeah.
do I have past lives and what were those past lives and what and just to kind of like have a little bit of a reference of where to start looking when I go into the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, there's a pretty intense past life that's coming through now. Do you want me to kind of talk about that? Yeah. And they made a joke when you're like, I don't know if I have past lives or anything, that they're like, oh yeah, yeah, you do. So there's many different ones. And we can just, ask a question of like, show me one that would be helpful in this life, show me one that's getting in the way, show me vows, like, right? There's so many ways that we can tune in. But this one they're bringing forward, and it's really strong. And it's being a witch in a past life, which is not uncommon with like intuitives and people that do any type of intuitive work, and being burned at the stake, like really intense kind of that. And like, I feel like that feels really connected to why almost like that magic, if you will, didn't come through till later in life. There
Sure.
was a It's almost, this is interesting. This hasn't come through before, but I wonder if this happens to other people. Almost like your past, that life spirit protecting you in this life by being like, almost like a cloak is kind of what I see over you, of like, we're not going to do this until later. Like, I'm going to shield you and protect you. And then I'm seeing the cloak being taken off, almost like, have you ever seen Harry Potter?
Hmm.
And the invisibility cloak? It's kind of like that, where it's like, okay, now we're ready. I'm going to take this cloak off, and now you're going to be able to get this information because you're safe now. But there's something that didn't feel safe when doing that younger.
Okay. Yeah, I could understand that. Yeah, my family was not very religious, but they're also not very open-minded.
Yeah. And some of it feels like it might have been a realistic protection, but some of it feels like, sometimes parents can pass down their fears to their kids.
Yeah.
Maybe those kids aren't going through that. It's kind of like that past, and I'm getting chills again, that kind of past life spirit of yours, I think had more fear about that. and might have over exaggerated than what would have happened. And so it was like extra protective, almost like I see like the cloak could have been taken off at times or taken off earlier, but they like really, really made sure to the coast was clear. Um, and there's even like kind of like an apology from that kind of that part of yourself, that life of like, yeah, we're not living in those times that I was living in. And I could see how that could have really changed your life sooner. Um, but almost like I'm seeing like a nudge of like, this is kind of maybe why we're nudging you to the Akashic Records and other things, because, now is the time and you could really get that benefit of things you didn't get back then.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and does that have anything to do with my early love of science then?
That past life,
Yeah.
that feels like connected to another life.
Okay.
Um, I see some kind of someone in the laboratory, like an inventor or like a yeah, someone who kind of would have come up with something or done experience and discovered something. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Mm.
Um, that feels like a maybe like a gift or an interest that like carried over from a different life than the one that I brought up.
Okay.
That one feels so the witch life feels feminine. The science lab one feels masculine, which if you think about right in the past, that feels like a modern life that probably men were the only ones that were allowed to do that kind of work. So that would make sense why that would be kind of a masculine energy.
Interesting. I'm often at odds with like the world of magic, the world of science, and
Mhm.
how they overlap and how they're many times the same thing. Um, and my husband is very much an atheist, very much a logical human being, and I love that about him. He's one of the smartest people I know, but he doesn't he puts all of his eggs in the science basket. And I am very much a person who um, I like to really question, and I like to really understand that the things that we do call science are pretty dang magical. The way that the world works is a really interesting, glorious machine.
Mhm.
So, then I feel like that's what he's missing sometimes is that he doesn't see the magic and the way that the universe works,
Mhm.
or the micro versus the macrocosm, how that's all. But my magic leanings are often very science. Uh, they're framed in a science way, in that way. In that, like, the whole idea that your mind is so we still haven't figured out how it works,
Mhm.
and therefore psychology is amazing because it is a magic in itself.
Mhm.
um, and we can train ourselves to do so many interesting things once we learn how to work that brain. But the brain is a very um, it's a machine that we just haven't we can't define it just yet.
Mhm.
So I'm of both. I'm in the both places, and that makes sense that there's like that. There's a balance there.
Yeah, I see almost like before you started talking about that, like all of that, what you just said makes sense because I saw those two lives kind of come together and be like, there could be a merging of that. It almost felt like they were separate, like, kind of how you described it, but that there could be a merging in this life. And the book that came to mind is Braiding Sweetgrass. Have you heard of that book?
Mm-mm.
I think her name, I'm so bad with names, but Dr. Kimmer, I think. Braiding Sweetgrass. She's an indigenous biologist, but she kind of in the book really talks about kind of the spiritual nature aspect of nature, but also mixed with the science. Like she merged it, and that wasn't always very well received. So I think kind of how you described it is very beautiful, and I think that is true that we don't have to keep them separate, and so that could be yeah, and I'm getting a confirmation your gift and purpose in this life could be like a merging of that if you so choose.
Great. That That feels very comforting.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Let me just see if there's any last messages here. Nope, they're showing me a bow being wrapped, so that usually says like wrap it up with a bow. It's good. Um, and take a moment to close your records in my mind. Just looks like a book closing. Call on Archangel Michael to cut our energy cords with love. Just looks like a rope of energy and just separate it out. You take your energy with you, and I take my energy with me. He's going to wrap you in a bubble of light, love, and healing and give it a color. And it's blue and green. It's so interesting. I feel like that those colors come up a lot more than the other ones, and I usually connect them with chakras. Sometimes people have their own personal meaning for that. So I feel like what the messages I'm getting is like it's the heart, right? To keep tending to the heart, keep your heart open. And the blue is the throat, right? To speak your truth. Don't stuff down. Like they're showing me stuffed animals and the concept of stuffed. And really speak your truth. That will keep the heart open. So almost like as I'm seeing you like speak your truth, like the green color is amplified.
Great.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This
Thank
was this
you.
was lovely. It was enjoyable.
Thank you for being here. If this conversation spoke to your soul, go ahead and like it, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to stay connected to more soul-led journeys. Your truth is sacred, your path matters, and you don't have to walk it alone. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.